God, what the heck's wrong with us here?
I don't know. Darn coronavirus. Okay. Looks like we're actually live on both channels. So
good
job, us. Well, it's really me.
Yeah, it is you. Credit where credit is due.
Yeah. So, how was your weekend?
It's running around after kids and trying to keep children entertained.
Yes, I imagine. And how did you fare with that? Well, mine was honestly, we've got a bunch of projects going on behind the scenes that it's just been a lot of work on that. So I put in like a 12-hour day on Saturday and then not much less on Sunday. So I'm starting off the week a little bit tired, but it's stuff that just needs to get done. So kind of warming up and powering through and making sure that we finish it. So.
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah. So did you have any revelations over the weekend about kind of what transpired over the past week and kind of what we should be doing heading into this next week?
Revelations specifically, I don't think so, but I think that there's just an overall mindset structure that allows us to begin to shift where we're looking at, to begin to create a framework where we can reframe. I don't think the reframes happen always like that. It's always about creating space so that we can start to see the possibilities that are showing up. Mm-hmm. I've got my kids doing a series of projects because I'm trying to keep them busy and entertained. And my older kids, I've got them doing projects that have something where they can pull a life lesson out of it. So my oldest son, he's doing a project on the life of Henry Ford. And so Henry Ford's a neat guy because he declared bankruptcy 5 times.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he declared bankruptcy 5 times. He was the guy who first built the V8 engine and was told for years it was impossible, and yet most of our cars today have V8 engines. I guess we're kind of going back to smaller ones again now, but you get the point. Mm-hmm. And he has some really interesting friends. One of his best friends was Thomas Edison, along with a few other really interesting people like that too. So, of course, he's going through figuring all these things about Henry Ford, but now I'm starting to switch to what's success. And we had this conversation last night. I'm even getting the kids to do little oral presentations in front of the families. Really trying to fill time.
Make them rehearse. That'll kill a few hours.
Exactly. So I've got them doing these things, and we have these dialogues, and I ask them questions so they can get a chance to not just with me, but their siblings, go deeper with what they're beginning to learn. And so the question I'm having them ask is really, what are the C's to success? And what he's starting to come through is that one of his things that Henry Ford's quote is that failure is not failure until you stop learning from whatever's happened. Mm-hmm. It's only when you stop learning that you've actually failed. And so, even though he failed, quote unquote, at making the V8 engine, even though he declared bankruptcy 5 times, every single time he learned from it and he moved forward and he continued to build in and learn everything. And so in that case, it was not at all failure. I read to him, I'm going to see if I can find this here. Sure. Winston Churchill, same thing on failure. So success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm.
Yep, that pretty much sums up the entrepreneurial journey, doesn't it?
Yeah. I've
failure.
Failure, inside of every failure is a seed of success, and it tells us and instructs us something. It's like, okay, that didn't work. Thomas Edison said the same thing, is that he asked about 10,000 times and his light bulbs didn't work. And they said, well, how do you feel about having failed 10,000 times? And he goes, well, I haven't failed 10,000 times. I just know 10,000 ways of not making the light bulb.
Yep.
So that is one of the most important beginning parts of understanding an attitude of resilience, to look for optimism in the middle of these challenging situations, is to understand that whatever you're feeling right now, whatever you're experiencing, and the challenges with your practice and dealing with your teams and trying to sort all these things out with patience, is that when we look at these things as not being failure and not being it's over, but to really stay the course and look for whatever's going to come and we can learn out of this, that's when we begin to open up the space. Mm-hmm. The challenge for us as people is when we have to begin to understand something about the way that our minds work. In life, we never have a chance to see all of the facts and all of the data. There's too much for us to know. So what our mind does is it begins to fill in all of the missing data points so that there's a continuity to what we're experiencing, and we form a narrative. So I read this as an example in a book years ago called, I can't remember what it's called now. The Sean Aker book, and I can't remember the name. I'll have to look it up and get back to you. Anyway, the story in it was saying, okay, let's imagine a situation. We're going to pretend it's 10, 15 years ago, and before all the days of direct deposit, and you're still getting paid the old-fashioned way, where you get a check in the mail or in your hands. Second Friday, you're standing in the lineup waiting for your chance to cash your check, and you're happy because you got money to go in the bank, but you're annoyed because it's a long lineup. And so while you're in that tension, watch a whole bunch of people with ski masks on and proceed to rob the bank. Now, in the chaos and the commotion of the robbery, you get shot in the arm. So my question for you, Angela, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
Depends on what happens after the fact. In the moment, it super sucks.
Okay. Why does it suck?
Because I like not having holes in my arms, and I'd like my arms to work fully as much as they possibly can.
Okay. What if I told you now, if the bullet had gone 6 inches to the left, it would have gone through the 10-year-old's head standing next to you? Or if it had gone 6 inches to the right, it would have gone through your heart?
Well, that's a better scenario. So.
Okay. Now, here's the crucial part of this. Did I give you any of that information, or the information you shared with me as to why it sucks when I asked the question?
No.
So to create the situation of where it was a good thing or a bad thing, we had to create additional data points to make sense of the experience that happened to us. Getting shot in the arm was an experience. Context. So we needed to create context around it to make sense of it. In both situations, did I tell you the information to create context?
At the beginning, no. But eventually you kind of told me a little bit of a story surrounding it so I could gain a bit of perspective.
So when we recognize that either way, that when we're creating context, we're making up a story anyway, why not begin to create a good story?
That's true. I still don't want a hole in my arm. I'm not going to say yay for a hole in my arm ever.
So let's play this forward to where we see this showing up in research now, because again, we're doctors and we need to keep things in science, right? Because it sounds like a great idea, but so what? What is the data? We're all very familiar with post-traumatic stress disorders and the effect that when we go through legitimately traumatic experiences, how that can have such damaging effects on ourselves and on the families around us. So, my grandfather came back from the Second World War with crazy amounts of PTSD that really affected his family life for most of the rest of it. It took him probably 60 years to work through it. So we know this
probably
PTSD
they didn't even know what he was dealing with, right?
Exactly. When we look at the data, there's this whole other area that's emerging. It's called post-traumatic growth. That when people go through legitimate situations, there's a known number of people, about 5% of people, who will look back at that traumatic event and say that was a life-changing event that made my life better, and I would never want to go through it again, but I'm so glad that I did when I did it, because it made me the person I am today. They're the outliers because it's the small 5%. It's not most people. So when you begin to study these people scientifically and you ask the question, okay, so what are they doing differently that everybody else is not doing, that they can come through it more resilient and better off? It breaks down to a couple different things. The first thing, particularly difficult and painful their experience was, they didn't hide from reality and try to, it's okay, it's no big deal, and brush off the challenge of their immediate experience. Getting shot in the arm hurts. Now, whether it's good or bad is the meaning and the context we create, but it still hurts. And you still have to acknowledge the fact that it hurts and I need medical attention now. Okay. So that's the first thing, is they were honest about their situation. The second thing is that while they're going through the challenge, is they kept and maintained their social relationships, and they leaned into the people who are around them rather than pushing them away. So often when we go through these difficult times, we push people away. And as we push people away and we begin to isolate, we just begin to spiral deeper and deeper and deeper into a pit. This is one of the greatest challenges that people who struggle with depression have, is that they isolate, and in doing so, they really are cutting off the lifeline that could pull them out of a dark place. So I think there's another life application right now in the middle of all this. Yes, okay, physical distancing is important, but maintaining and deepening your social connections. Like even right now, how wonderful of an opportunity that all of us are getting to dig in deeper with our families, be closer with our kids, closer with our partners. I think that's beautiful. The third thing, though, that these people with post-traumatic growth experienced, and I think this is the key part, is that they found a way to positively reorient their experience and tell another story. The same kind of way we talked about, okay, well, it hurt that it went through my arm, the bullet went through my arm, but attention right now. When we look at our experiences in that way and we create a positive orientation around what we're feeling, I think that gives us a much better opportunity to see the possibilities that are in front of us.
So let's give us those 3 things again. So the post-traumatic growth, part 1.
Yeah, so the first thing is being truly open and aware and acknowledging the challenge that you're in, being honest about the experience you're having. This hurts. I need to do something about it. The second thing was about deepening your social connections in the middle of challenges. And the third thing was creating a positive context to integrate that experience in a way that's going to serve you for growth.
So let's talk about number 2, because that's one thing that I think people right now they're experiencing, whether they've like fully acknowledged how much it sucks, how bad they're feeling, and what could potentially come out of it. Right now, a lot of people are just feeling bad.
Yeah.
And for anyone who has been through depression, there's going to be people who are going to be heading into depression. It's not going to be instant like that suddenly a light switch goes on and they've gone from good to bad.
Absolutely.
But there's going to be a bit of an accumulation happening over the next little while as they start to see, oh my gosh, yeah, this is not going to just last 2 weeks. This is probably going to be lasting maybe even 6 months, right? And we're going to see a bit of a shutdown of people. And what happens a lot of times is when people are going through the sucky stuff, especially professionals, they don't want to reach out for help because they're proud, right? Yeah. You and I are proud when we go through bad things. We're not like, hey, world, my life is awful right now.
And we have professional image that we're trying to consider. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so for a lot of the way that people can get that help is actually their circle being aware of the situation. Yeah. So not even having to like have a heart-to-heart conversation about it and say like, no, my life super sucks right now and I need your help, but just having those outside people kind of monitoring the situation, which isn't easy when you're going through your own situation at the same time. But I think if we can get everyone starting to like weigh in together and connect and make sure that they're actually supporting each other, I think that's where things need to start changing. And I think it will happen. I was talking to my assistant this weekend. She's in Croatia. Mm-hmm. They just had a massive earthquake. Cars are crushed by like bricks that have fallen off the buildings. Like she showed me images and I'm just going, what is happening with the world?
Wow.
And it was interesting because she was like, well, let's look at the silver lining of this. Well, nobody really got harmed because it happened in the night. So there weren't many people out on the street. Yes, there's chaos because of this, but she's like, look at what's happening with the coronavirus and everything else. It's starting to bring people together. We have less pollution. We have all these things happening that are turning out a more positive outcome than when we were stuck where we were. And I think a lot of people were stuck before this pandemic hit, where they were super stressed out about everything that was happening around them and so worried about trying to control their world and create that magnificent life that they wanted instead of looking at what's really important in the world. And I think we're all starting to wake up a little bit to that possibility and that potential in our world to have a beautiful life instead of chasing capitalism, chasing possessions and everything else that we have been so focused on.
Yeah, that's so true. Everything you're talking about reminds me of an old movie, Life is Beautiful. Have you and I ever talked about Life is Beautiful? Not
really, no. And it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Have you seen it though? You know the one I'm talking about, right? The movie is all in Italian. To my knowledge, I think it's the only foreign film that won the Academy Award for Best Motion Picture. Mm-hmm. And it's this father who goes and endures a concentration camp with his son and manages to create a way that his son has joy the entire time in a concentration camp, and how he goes about doing that. And it fits so closely with what you're saying about you can't control the things that are happening around you, but you can always control your own response. Mm-hmm. And you can choose what your actions are going to be. I'm seeing this happening a lot right now with social media, even people in public. I had a meeting with a colleague this morning, and this colleague of ours, she was in Costco this last week looking at the chicken, try to buy some meat. And this lady walks up next to her and says, "Social distancing." And she looks over, she's like, "What are you talking about? I was standing here first."
Yeah.
Each of us are responsible for ourselves, for our own actions. And while we must be looking out for everyone, I'm not saying we don't look out for everyone else. When we stand in that place of doing what we can do, as opposed to trying to tell everybody else what they can do, and our response to the challenges and the randomness of life. We always have that ability and the decision to choose what we're going to do in that moment. And when you recognize that ability to choose whatever you're going to choose in that moment is something intrinsic to who you are as a person and a human, and that is one of the most beautiful gifts that we have as humanity. Let's use that right now and operate from that place and decide what we're going to do with this situation for ourselves and for our families.
So what are you going to do with this situation for yourself?
I'm using it to, like, for starters, these kinds of things you and I are doing is that, like, you and I have learned these things the hard way. And we shared this a little bit last time, what some of our experiences were. So one thing that's important for me is that because I have gone through life experiences that have equipped me, like, but I have this bizarre, and it doesn't even make sense, excitement about what's going on, not because of there's a problem, but because it's disrupting everything. It's changing the way we think, the way we interact, which opens up so many levels of opportunities that weren't there before. And I don't even know what they're going to be. I just know that they're there. And I know that as the people who are going to come through this are going to be people who connect closer together. And now there's a chance for people to say, okay, what I'm doing wasn't working. I'm listening to a new thing. And so when people like you and I and other people who have got similar life experiences begin to share, hey guys, here's some real tools we can do to work through this stuff, I think we have a chance to see a lot of really positive change in this world. And the ability for us right now to help people who are struggling, who don't have those skills. So that's what I'm doing. That's a big part of what I'm doing. On a more personal level, I'm using this as an opportunity to double down on my fitness, even from home. I have more time to work out than I've ever had to before.
You're so buff.
Thanks.
we're gonna have to have like flex contests on here after.
You're gonna beat me. We both know it already. We'll just crown you the champion now.
Okay, you've got a week to learn how to do one-arm push-ups, and then we're gonna do that next week. Okay.
Oh my gosh, one-arm push-ups. Hey, I don't know about that.
You can do it.
And one of the other things I'm doing is, now that I've got all this extra time with my family, I'm using it and doubling down on my relationships with my kids. Like I said, I alluded to that I've got these different projects I've got my kids doing. My older daughter, again, I got twins that are 10. She's right now doing her project on or the colonial American colonies and understanding everything that brought them to their Charter of Independence and how do a group of farmers overthrow the most powerful military in the world and declare independence successfully. There is huge life lessons that can be learned in the way that the founding fathers of American history conducted themselves and organized themselves to put themselves where they are today. So again, it's an opportunity to teach my children life lessons in the middle of an unprecedented challenge. They're learning the keys to success by looking at the past and how people faced huge obstacles and overcame them to tremendous opportunity on the other side. I've got my kids gratitude journaling every night, so that as these things happen, and because it sucks that they're not getting to see their friends, they're not going to school, they're not going on their play dates anymore, they're not going to swimming pools, they're not all the fun things that kids love to do, they can't do them, and they're going crazy. Keeping my kids' behavior in line is hardly an easy thing. But when they sit down,
you got 3 of them, so they're like a little army against you.
But when I sit down every night and they write down 3 to 5 things that they're grateful for, what's going to happen is that when all of this blows over, because eventually it will, their memory of this experience. We had such a great time with Dad. We played so many games together as a family. We got to eat all of this yummy homemade food. They are going to come out of this with a very different emotional impression, and with a focus on what they can do to learn and grow in the middle of all of these very bizarre and uncertain times. So you ask what I'm doing with my family, that's specifically what I'm doing with my family.
Nice.
What are you guys doing?
I've been hanging out with my hamster, little baby Cy.
What's your hamster's name?
Cy, C-Y.
And what are you doing with Cy to make life better?
Do you want to meet Cy? Here, I'll bring Cy on. He's so cute. Here's the little munchkin. Can you see him?
How old is Cy?
I got him just under a year ago. So he's pretty cute. And he's been like really, really affectionate. Like I'm never home for usually more than a week or two at a time. So he's kind of like, what is happening? Why is mom home? Why does she keep waking me up during my naps? But yeah, it's actually been really cute because I put him in his ball and he like goes running across the house, and now he'll run and then he wants to come and like play at my feet instead of actually trying to like escape the world. So yeah, it's pretty nice. So that's one of the things. And on the professional side, it's really just been like figuring out, what can I contribute right now? Because like there's a lot of people hurting that haven't gone through chaos in their businesses right now. So there's been a lot of conversations every day since this happened. And even on the weekend, just giving my time to people and just being like, okay, what do you need right now? How can I help you? Let's get to the other side of this and then figure out, what we do from there. But right now, I think people just need love, they need attention, they need reassurance that the world is going to be okay and that they will get through this, because it is a shock, especially if someone hasn't been through anything devastating business-wise. Yeah. There's a lot of little, like I call them baby dentists, but like there's baby business owners out there who had their rose-colored glasses on. They were so excited to be chasing their entrepreneurial dream, and they like just got slapped out of the sky this past week, and now they're not prepared for it, right? Which no one really could be prepared for it, but they haven't had to deal with anything too strenuous like this before too in their world. So it's it's a lot. So
that being an entrepreneur is the modern equivalent of a spiritual journey.
Yeah, totally is.
Requires you to take leaps of faith into the unknown. It requires you to have belief in yourself and in what you're doing. That if you don't have some of those disciplines and practices, you're not going to make it through. And this is one of those chances where we get a chance to really deepen and know how resilient and how capable we can be, even in the face of what appear to be overwhelming challenges. Yeah.
And I think like we blame millennials for instant gratification and all this kind of stuff, but we've all become part of it because of the way that our world interacts. And I think with a lot of entrepreneurs too, they're still expecting, until this past week, that instant gratification. Now they're realizing, or maybe not realizing yet, but they need to, is that they still have to be running the long game. They have to be keeping their eye on the prize, and they're going to get slapped back and forth every once in a while. And this may just be the start of an interesting few months where things are going to go haywire more often than we would like. But I think if people can really focus on that long game and realize, okay, I got into this for a reason. It wasn't just because I wanted to instantly have success. It was because I was trying to make a difference in this way or that way, and stick to that journey. Then they're more likely to make it to the other side as little, like with as few scars as possible, but know that there are a few scars, and that's kind of what makes the journey cool as well, because you have these things to look back on. If everything was simple, then it doesn't have the same impact on our lives as when there is ups and downs that we have to really get through.
I think of it as a lot like, I know with your professional dancing that exercise and fitness is a big part of your identity and what you do.
Yeah.
So I think you relate to this quickly is, when we are exercising at a really high level, we are damaging our muscles. Mm-hmm. We're actually causing trauma to the muscle fibers and tissues that sit inside of our body as we're working them to that level of intensity. But it's only with the damage and trauma that's what kickstarts the process of healing, and that process of healing is what makes us stronger. Mm-hmm. And when you understand, and if you can stop, and all of us who are watching, to stop and appreciate that your body is literally built to take the trauma, absorb it, and create more strength. Mm-hmm. It's physically the way you're put together and packaged. This is intrinsic to your DNA and your complex of who you are as a human, as a person. Appreciate that about yourself, even if it doesn't make sense. I find that the thing that holds up people the most from being able to move forward is they get lost in the how, and they don't understand how, and if they don't see how, they don't go forward. And this is what my son was telling me with the Henry Ford with the V8 thing, is that I don't know how many times he tried and it failed to make it. And so for the dentists right now who are in that, like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my business? You don't even know how you're going to get through it. That's okay. Just know that you're going to make it through it. And things likely won't look the same when we're finished. We started, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because when you come through the other side, learning the lessons that you're learning through this experience, you will be so much better in business going forward. You're going to operate your business with so much better fundamentals that will set you up for a lifetime of success and be able to weather the next ups and downs that are going to happen. This is a downright turn right now, and we're going to have more in our careers. So when we put our businesses in line to create those strong and really solid fundamentals now, we become bulletproof for the rest of our career. So thank God we're getting this early and out of the way for our careers.
Yeah, agreed. And what I'm actually looking forward to is seeing over the next 6 months, the innovation in thinking as well as technology and approaches that people are going to be making in order to really survive this. So it's going to be interesting to be able to look back and see, okay, this was the instigating point that kind of exploded the world into a completely different mindset. So I think it's going to be a beautiful thing when we get to the other end of it.
I agree. And for those who are willing to pivot from where they are right now, you're going to be the ones who see the opportunity. So if you're looking for practices to keep you in that mindset, I'd start with the gratitude journaling. That's the easiest one to do. It keeps you in an optimistic frame of mind, which then allows you to move forward. Fear has one purpose, is to keep you standing still and doing nothing. When we keep ourselves locked in fear, it closes us to be able to see whatever's coming on. When we continue with an attitude of and a perspective of gratitude for the good things that are still happening in the middle of all the challenges, it keeps our mind open to see all of the opportunities that are going to show up. And that's where we can become really innovative, where necessity is the mother of invention. So all of us are going to be doubling down and figure out new ways to do things that will open up huge possibilities. I agree with you completely, Angela. I think you're muted.
Yep, agreed. Well,
I saw dancing,
on that note,
dancing lips, and that was it.
I say we wrap it up. Am I muted?
No, you're back now.
I don't think I'm muted. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Huh. Just give me a second here. I'm back now. Okay, perfect. Well, I would say on that note, why don't we wrap it up for today? You can hear me now? Okay, awesome. So let's wrap it up for today, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for another riveting discussion on dealing with the trauma that we're going through right now and looking for the opportunities in this lifetime. And little baby Sai says goodbye.
I think my internet's doing funny things over here.